Hey, welcome back. My name is Jay Oza. I teach, mentor, and coach people on public speaking so that they can give winning high-stakes speeches, whether it's for job interviews, business or sales meetings, or even at conferences in front of a lot of people. And one more thing before I go into the topic today is that I'm currently working on a book that should be out hopefully after the end of September. At this point, I haven't picked the launch date yet since there are a lot of things that I have to take care of. But the title of the book is Winning Speech Moments, and it goes into the three things that you need to really uh, hack in order to deliver a high stakes speech that achieves your objective, and that's content, message, and performance. I'll go more into that in future videos, but I just wanted to give you a heads up that this is going to be coming out soon. Today I want to focus on a sales tip. And this is a tip that I don't believe I've ever seen any sales guru ever cover. It has to do with experience. Now this is we always talk about you got to understand the customer's needs, wants, and all that. But I think what's more important than anything is the person's prior experience. You have to know what that is. I may want to buy a car. I may want to buy, I may need a car, but if my past experience wasn't good, that is very hard to overcome. And I'll give you a few examples later on. So before you go into the, the needs and wants and all of that, you really need to spend time on the experience. If the person had a bad experience, then you got a lot of work to do. You're going to have to bring that bad and focus on just that, because if that experience was bad, that person has a negative bias. You got to get that to positive bias, and that requires work. Uh, and that's outside the scope on what you have to do, but you got to first focus on that experience. That client or customer first has to feel like that the experience you're providing is different and better, so that the old experience never goes away, but at least it'll kind of minimize it. Let's put it that way, minimizes it or reduces its impact, and that suddenly he has a better experience to point to. That's your job, is actually not focusing on the needs and wants. And I don't think salespeople ever do it. And the reason is that you require a tremendous amount of empathy skills to understand somebody's experience. So I will give you a few examples, uh, some personal, some from work. So let me just give you some trivial one. And the trivial one has to do with a politician. I had one time attended this politician's fundraising when he was just starting out. And at that time, I attended his fundraiser. It was the only fundraiser I've ever attended. I donated $100. I think my father also donated $100, and it was a fundraiser that was held by a relative of mine. So I went to it. I even had my picture taken with him. And recently, his name is being touted as a potential presidential candidate on the Democratic side in 2020. So he's well known now. So I sent him an email saying, hey, by the way, I'm coming out with my book. Would like to know if you'd be interested in providing a blurb. Okay, that was it. I never got a reply. So I had a bad experience because I expected at least some kind of reply saying, yes, we'd like to do it, or yes, but we don't blurb books, and etc. Whatever, something I expected back, some kind of reply. Got nothing. So just recently, a relative sent out a text message saying, hey, there was an article in Politico where this person is being touted as somebody who could be a major force in 2020 Democratic politics. And I sent a message back to this relative saying, I will not be voting for him because I sent him a simple email request and I didn't get any kind of response back. Yet I get bombarded with all kinds of fundraising requests from the same politician. But there's no need for him to reply to my simple email. So the relative comes back and says, well, don't you think he has a lot of things to do than to reply to your email, and you're not part of his base? I said, yes, that's why he has a staff. That's why these people have a staff. I'm not sending it to some Joe Blow out there that I don't even know. If that were the case, I'm expecting an email back. But this time, this guy's sending fundraising requests. I actually attended his fundraising event. I even pointed that out. Yet there's nobody in his staff had the courtesy to even reply to my email. So that's my experience, and it's a bad one. And that means that in the future, I will not give any kind of funding to any politician because I learned the hard lesson. They don't give a damn. That's my experience. Nobody can take that away from me. Unless a politician out there can change that experience of mine to a better one, I'm not giving any more money to any politicians. That's my experience. And that's what I have, and nobody can talk me out of that. Okay, second example. And this had to do with SAT prep. So I have two kids. I have an older daughter who's currently working, and a son who's started high school. He's in his second year. And we're trying to get him some help on SAT so that he gets more comfortable and learns the techniques and all that. So we took him to this test prep site. They did a test, and they put together a program for him, a pricey program. And the money is okay. It's expensive, but I'm willing to take chance if my son can really learn some skills and and and, and possibly even do well on the test, right? But I said there's one concern I have, which is from my experience, is that I did the same thing with my daughter and it didn't make a difference. I spent a lot of money, got one-on-one tutoring, I sent her to a test prep site, nothing helped. Her score didn't change at all. Okay, so that's my experience. And this particular place, this woman is sending me email saying that, oh, but we're different, we're this and we're that. And she never understood that I have an experience until they change that in some ways or minimize it. I'm not going to go for it. And what I had asked was that I need a trial. I need a 2-week trial to determine whether this is something where my son is going to take it seriously before I commit to it, whether he's committed, whether I'm committed. And the way to do it is give me a low-priced 2-week trial so that we can all come to a decision whether this is going to work. They don't offer that. I'm not interested. But the thing that this lady did not understand is that I have an experience. She doesn't try to take that experience out of the equation. That's not something she even cares about. There's no empathy on that. The sale doesn't go. It's a dead-end sale. I'll give you a third one. And this one, I'll actually give you one more after that. Third one had to do with when I worked as an alliance manager. I joined this company called SunGuard. And this happens in a lot of companies that I joined as an alliance manager. First thing I always hear is that the partners that they had worked with, they had really screwed them big time. That to the point where they just had a terrible experience. And I went to my boss and said, look, when that has happened, you're putting me in a very difficult spot. In the beginning, all I have to do is they're gonna have to trust me. Their experience is what their experience is. I can't change that. All I can change is that with me, they're not going to get that same experience. And the company's going to have to show that the past is not prologue, that they're going to be different now. And if the same characters are still there, then it's going to be very difficult for me to convince them that they're going to have a better experience. They're not going to get fooled twice. And I said, it's going to take a longer. And a lot of times, these companies, when they hire you, they don't have that patience. They don't understand it, that people don't forget the past. Their past experience essentially dictates their behavior on how they're going to deal with you, and they get very hesitant to open up and work with you because they've been burned before. They're not going to open up and work with you because this is business. You can't screw people in business. Once you do that, people don't forget, and it takes a lot longer. And a lot of times you come in and you work hard for 6 months trying to establish relationship. You tell them, look, we're different. You got to take a kind of a slow approach to engender trust, to engender a new attitude, new practices and all that. And the burden essentially is on us if we want to reach out and have a relationship. And then a lot of times what happens is they let the alliance people go when things get hard, and that means they're going to have to start again. And once the partner gets burned, typically it's the end of the relationship. It doesn't start again. So they basically are discounting everything that a partner manager or alliance manager has done, and they're going to start over again. And that is a long path. It doesn't work. Okay. The last example I'll give you is in politics, and it has to do with President Trump. If President Trump is creating bad experience all over the place globally, where countries like Germany and Japan and all of it will have terrible experience with America. Like America can no longer be trusted when it comes to treaties like TPP, NAFTA, or you name it. That means the future president is going to have that much more difficult task, and he or she may not even succeed because the experience now that the people are getting is that America can no longer be trusted with treaties. That just because you spend years and years negotiating a treaty, they'll elect somebody who'll completely cancel it, and you're now up the creek. So that means that everything Donald Trump is doing is an experience that is going to somehow affect the country and the future administration that takes over, because people have now gotten burned. And that's something you don't do. You cannot recover from that quickly. So at this point, it's kind of hard to say, but I guarantee you, because I've experienced this personally, that everybody out there who's happy with some of the things that Donald Trump is doing, be careful. What goes around comes around. All these countries in the future are going to make life extremely difficult for America in order to conduct business because they've been burned. That means you're going to have to now expend more. You don't get the default, like, yeah, we can trust you. Now the default is we can't trust you. There's a negative bias in working with American companies and Americans in general. And that's not going to be easy to overcome. And that got basically destroyed with one presidency. And that's the consequence. You know, there's a consequence of elections. That's the consequence that nobody thinks about, that a lot of people in America are going to realize pretty soon, maybe not now, but real soon, that, you know, what comes around goes around, and other countries are now going to make it very difficult to work with America. So to close this out, experience is very important. If somebody's had a good experience, you get the benefit. If somebody's had the bad, that means there's a positive bias. If somebody had a good experience working with you in the past, you get the positive bias there. If somebody's had bad experience, that's a negative bias. So you got to get that negative bias and neutralize it before it turns into a positive bias. This is a fundamental to any sales situation. And a lot of sales gurus out there never give this advice. They just think like, you just need to find out somebody's wants and somebody's needs. But the underlying thing that will ultimately scuttle the deal or business is the experience that person or that company's had. That is the part that they're not going to share because they don't want to share that. That is the art in extracting that information. Hey, how were you treated in the past? It's just like, you know, when you have a relationship with spouse. If the spouse has gotten burned, they don't forget that. That will jaundice their opinion of you and anything you do in the future. You've got to get to that. Otherwise, you can't do business. You're just wasting time. Okay? So think about this and let me know if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, ideas, or even criticism. Think that this is total bull. As usual, thank you for watching and good luck with your next sales, whatever it may be. Thank you.